everyone, welcome back to my studio. Good morning, if I can say that. It's morning here in Berlin. It's also the first day of fall, so it's getting pretty exciting. Fall is my favorite season. Anyway, I'm so excited to be bringing you this tutorial today because this is a super easy tutorial. I would call this like a beginner level project. This is something that anyone can do. However, this is a technique that even like professionals use. So it's a beginner level, it's super easy, and yet you can make like some really awesome things with it. So let's get into it. So first I'm going to start by rolling out a slab. And as always, all of my tools and materials are listed in the description box down below. I'm just going to give my clay a quick wedge because I am using recycled clay here and I want to make sure I have no air bubbles and that the clay is thoroughly mixed. So always when you're rolling out a slab, you never really want to like roll it out in one go. You want to be flipping it and changing the angles that you're rolling it out so that the clay stretches evenly and you don't get any thin spots. I like my plates to be a little bit thicker than a normal slab. You don't want to make your plates too thin, otherwise they're going to be super fragile and likely to warp and crack and have all sorts of problems. So I would recommend thicker than a half centimeter. A half centimeter is really the absolute thinnest you could go. But I would recommend something like 0.7 centimeter, even a full centimeter if you want to have like a really hardy plate. And you want to roll out your slab until you're basically rolling on top of the thickness gauges and the slab's not growing anymore. At that point, you know that you have an even thickness in your slab. And then after rolling my slab, I'm going to go ahead and compress it with a rib. So you're basically just like stroking the clay, but you're putting a little bit of downward pressure, just enough so that you get lines from the rib on your slab, and then you know you're doing a good job. Compressing the clay really helps with things like cracks and warping. And if you have any bubbles, that's fine. Even if you wedge the clay, sometimes you still have some bubbles left. So just go ahead and poke those bubbles with a needle tool to get the air out. And then you want to make sure you are compressing both sides of the slab. Okay, so now we have our slab rolled out and compressed, and now I can decide what shape I want for my plate. So of course you can go ahead and use some sort of stencil or like another plate to trace a perfect circle if you want. You can make your shape oval, you can make your shape, you know, whatever shape you want. I'm gonna kind of freestyle this, and I'm using this quite sharp knife to cut out the clay. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna do some sort of mostly round but a little blobby shape. Okay, so now that my clay is cut out, I need to let it dry out a little bit. So you have two options here. You can wait about an hour until your clay firms up, or you can put it in front of the fan for like 10-15 minutes, just to let it firm up a little bit. And depending on the type of clay that you're using and your local, temperature and humidity, it could take longer or shorter than an hour. Just check on your clay. What we want is the clay to sort of be firm enough to hold its shape for the next step. Okay, so now my slab plate thing is a little bit more firm. I mean, you can sort of test it by holding the edges of it, and it should like bow in a little bit, like sink down a little bit, but not dramatically. Like you can hold it without kind of like losing control of it. And the main thing is that you're going to be able to kind of sculpt it and form it without it falling immediately back down. So what I want to do is turn up all the edges of this plate so we have a rim on our plate. So I'm just using my thumbs to kind of turn the plate up. So I've got my front fingers behind and I'm just turning up the edge. And what's important here with the drying is that it keeps its form. How much you turn the clay up is completely up to you. So now I'm going to put the plate back in front of the fan, or you can wait another hour or so for it to firm up once again, because next we're going to be going in with a sponge and some water to tidy up those edges. But for now, we don't want to add any water to it because it could actually lose its form now at this point, because the whole point of putting it in front of the fan to dry it out so we can turn up the edge. If we add water to it now, it's going to make it wet again and the edge will come back down. So yeah, I'm going to put it in front of the fan again until I can tell that it's not going to lose its shape. Okay, now our plate is finally dried out enough to smooth over the edges. So I'm going to show you a really quick way to do this. You take a small handheld sponge, and I'm just going to push it over the edge like this and go all the way around. And this smooths out everything in just one go. That's all you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to show you a trick for drying these plates flat, because what often happens with slab plates is that they warp. We put a lot of stress on the clay when we rolled out the slab, and clay has memory. It always kind of wants to go back to its original form. So it's gonna kind of curl up in on itself as it's drying so that it can go back to the original shape that it was in, this block of clay. But as long as you can get through the first drying process without any warping, you're probably, not necessarily, but probably going to get through without any warping. So what I do is I have a little bag of rice. So this is just a cotton canvas bag. This is actually, if you buy toolkits from us, this is the exact same bag that our toolkit comes in. So you can use that. And this is just full of rice, and I'm just gonna lay it on top. So this is going to provide weight to keep the plate flat during the drying process. So if you have a completely flat slab, maybe you've seen this before, for example, on my tiles video, my tile coaster video, I usually just leave a board on it, and that will be enough weight to keep it flat. However, and because of this rim here, we can't really do that. And so what I like to do is just put a bag of rice on top, and that generally works. So fingers crossed on this one. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it like this. I'm gonna let it dry out completely with the bag on top of it. And then when it's completely dried out, I'll put it into the bisque. And then as usual, I'll glaze it and put it back into the kiln for the final fire, and I'll show you the final result right now. So I hope that you like the final result of our plate. I decided to go for some blue speckles and some textured whites in the glazing. So I hope that video was helpful for you. If you have any questions on this tutorial, just leave them down below in the comments. And as always, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Pottery to the People. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.